Hey everyone, I am in Corpus Christi, Texas today, and this is the old Bayview Cemetery. From what I understand, it is the oldest federal cemetery in the state of Texas, so I thought we might just kind of sort of do a walkthrough and look around. There's also a historic sign in there, so maybe it'll tell us a little bit more about the cemetery and anybody that's important that's laid to rest inside the cemetery. So come along with me. So this is really close to downtown. It's extremely windy. They've had kind of a tropical storm in the bay that hit more east of here, Houston, Louisiana, and stuff like that, but still feeling the effects of like the wind and stuff here. And all of the ocean has a red flag warning and the waves are really rough. But that's downtown Corpus Christi there. And I thought we'd just take a look at this old cemetery here. There's two historic signs. This sign is talking about the explosion of the steamship Dayton, and it mentions the annexation of Texas into the United States in June of 1845, but there was a boundary dispute between Texas and Mexico. So they wanted to position the troops near that border, and the Dayton was carrying troops from Corpus Christi to St. Joseph Island on September 12th, 1845, when a boiler burst near Ingleside. And then the second boiler blew as the boat plunged into the water. The remains of the vessel caught on fire and soon sank. A small boat picked up the wounded, and it was following several of the explosions. 7 soldiers were killed and 1 died several days later. A burial site was chosen here by General Hitchcock, and a military funeral took place the same day as the accident. Victims here are Lieutenant Benjamin Berry, and then we have a Lieutenant Higgins, and then we have Richard Edwards, John Hughes, and it tells about where they're born and stuff and their ages. Iwanansky. So different people in here. We'll have to see if any of the markers mention those victims like that. That's quite a story there, but that's how this cemetery began. And then this other sign over here, let's see. Normally it looks like they could have some flags here. Maybe a historical association puts them up, but yeah, it says that this is the oldest federal military cemetery in Texas. The old Bayview was laid out by the U.S. Army engineers while Brigadier General Zachary Taylor was encamped in Corpus Christi on the eve of the Mexican War. So on September 13th, 1845, the steamer Dayton was used to transfer men from St. Joseph Island to Corpus Christi, and then it talks about the boiler bursting. Pretty interesting history. Hopefully you can hear me over the wind and those sirens. But these trees are also very interesting in here. They're kind of laid over. The style of the trees, I have no idea what kind of trees these are. If we have someone in here that's a green thumb, maybe you can help us out. But it's really interesting. I think I've seen this some other places in Texas, kind of near this Corpus Christi area maybe. But it's interesting how many of them are leaning like this. And the bark is different. You know, the bark is sort of twisting around the tree. And then if I can show you the leaves up close, the leaves are really tiny, if you see that. Nice looking trees. They're ones that I don't see in Oklahoma or anything. But let's take a look around, see what we can find. I'm hoping that some of those markers to the older graves like that will mention something about it, because otherwise I'm going to forget. Look at this one. Something Torres, and that marker is broken. Even that one's got some chips off of it there, like maybe a branch fell on it and chipped some of it off. So I don't know what we're gonna see or find in here, but I thought we might just walk around since it's such an old cemetery. Oh, here's a marker right here. There was a tree here at one point, and so this marker has kind of fallen over and broken, and they've kind of just left it there. We see 1891, 1884, 1879. So Jeff W.K. Mew, this is the Mew family. There's a Ben G. Mew over there. It's a little marker right here on the side. Anton Muley. Maybe that's the full name, and then the Mew was just shortened. So this is interesting. Now this would have been standing up as well. These are tall markers that would have been here at one point. This would have been on the base here, and it clearly fell over or was about to, so they've cemented it into this block like this. Pretty interesting. Oh, those trees are pokey. Oh. Okay. There must be thorns on these trees. I don't know what that was, but it sure poked me. There's something on there pokey anyways. Let's try this. Let's try this again. It's interesting, these trees have some sort of bean pod on it. So I don't know. If you know what kind of tree this is, leave a comment. I have no idea. Whatever it is, at least the particular spot I rubbed up against was pokey. But Weidenmuller here died August 11th, 1867, and on November 12th, 1820. Charles and Maria. So this southern part of Texas, it does have a Spanish influence, of course, from Mexico, but this Weidenmuller is a German influence, and so a lot of southern Texas, specifically around San Antonio, I know everybody thinks of old Mexico, but there is a German influence in the southern part of Texas as well. Look at this marker. I noticed this because I parked right over there, and this marker is pretty well gone. There's no top to it whatsoever. Have no idea who it is. And then there's just sort of this block here for some reason, and the ground has all these broken and busted seashells through here. It's just almost like they just kind of scattered them through here on this hillside right here. And this is Newman, Ellen and Julia Newman. It's like there's several people here when you look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people right there, and it's all broken and busted. Seashells all over the place. Must be a tradition that you leave seashells as a token of remembrance, which is different. So here we have Lafayette Caldwell, died in 1882, born in Washington, D.C. Came all the way down here. So got this kind of open area through there, but I'm not seeing any graves. Let's see what this is. Erected May 1907 in memory of Reverend William Mitchell, and first pastor, First Presbyterian Church, and also other yellow fever victims. So he must have been a yellow fever victim, who lie in unmarked graves on this site. An appreciation of all pioneer church members buried here. First Presbyterian Church, organized May 12th, 1867, is what this nice big monument is indicating here. Looks like maybe they might have had something here and then replaced it with this, because this looks a lot newer than what this placard is right here. It's a decent sized cemetery when you look around. Some of the markers are huge, but what I've noticed is so many of them are busted and broken. That one right there is busted and broken. It's kind of sad. Guess they have no more family around, and these are really old ones. It died in 1914 here. The last name is Bennett. And then we have Ira Bass Walker, 1866 to 1936. That one looked in good shape. This one was standing up, and now it's busted. And it's not really legible at all, but I would say that that's a government marker. Much like these right here. Here we have another historic sign. See what this historic sign says. Yeah, that marker over there would have been like this. So this is Sergeant William H. Warfield, Company K, 38 U.S. Confederate Infantry. That's a Confederate soldier right there down here. So that's pretty interesting. I'm in the other vehicle, so all my flags and stuff are in that other car, and that's all torn, so it really doesn't do me any good to lift it back up. So this is George Owens and Company F, 9th U.S. Cavalry. So here we have a Union soldier, looks like, and he has his own historical sign. After the War Department issued General Order 329 in October of 1863, African Americans had the opportunity to fight in the Union Army. George Owens, African American, obviously. So we're learning something here. That's interesting. Good for him having a marker like this. Born enslaved in 1843 in Kentucky, took this opportunity. Owens enlisted in the Union Army on June 28th, 1864, and most likely after his owner freed him. From 1864 to 1866, George Owens served in the Company F of the 116th Colored Infantry. In 1865, the 116th participated in the Appomattox Campaign, a series of battles that led to the defeat of the Confederacy. So it's pretty interesting. A lot of history here that you can pause it and read it if you want to. George Owens served in the Union Army and fought for his and other enslaved people's freedoms. Additionally, his service in the 9th Cavalry highlights African Americans' historical significance in the United States military history. So that is pretty special right here. It's very interesting that here we have a what they've termed as a colored African American soldier in the Union Army buried next to someone that was in the Confederate infantry. So, right? USC. So, and maybe they do burial steel every once in a while or something, or that's just used to level out the ground. Short squatty tree here. That's the view of the bridge that kind of goes over, and right near that is the USS Lexington, a naval museum ship, an aircraft carrier. It's pretty interesting. I've been on it before. Probably won't go on it this trip, but sometime I do need to make a video on that. It's big, and I really like it. I've been on it several times. So this one, Alfred Bailey Moore, died 1880. And this Ford right over here has a whole little area to themselves. It's pretty interesting. We'll see if we can maybe highlight some of the key things here, so I'm not showing you every grave. McLaughlin, Mrs. Rachel McLaughlin, died in Corpus Christi in 1908, and we have a marker that's leaning in and the top is off. And TJ McLaughlin, looks like died in 1898. Yeah, but it's really getting worn down as well, and it's about to be a headstone that you can't read either. See, look at these trees, how they just kind of grow to the side and along the ground like that. Isn't that interesting? A lot of broken markers in here though, and that's elected by the First Congregational Church, I guess. It's getting hard to read too. Weathering down. And something here, man, that, I really have no idea what that was. Some kind of round looking brick structure. I don't know if it's like a water tower or maybe it's a bell now that I'm thinking of it. a bell here in the cemetery yard. Some kind of bell tower. But this one is off of the marker Walker, and that's 1893. I wonder if that's kind of a newer marker, you know, sometime in the 30s maybe. This one is broken. Leonard Weber. You can look down through here though and see a lot of them broke and leaning and damaged or weathered. It's definitely an old cemetery. Most of the graves so far are in the late 1800s, like this one. That was a little boy, basically 10 days old in 1890. That one's weathered piece on the other side, but it's not really legible. But it does have some big, pretty monuments in here, though. So I do like that. Here's broken ones there. Look at this. These things can easily get hidden in the grass, and then when you run over it with a tractor or something, it breaks like that. That was early 1900s sometime. And died at 1888, looks like. This top is missing. Pretty interesting, though. These trees. Okay, what? Oh! Look at that, guys. There's parrots up there. I never knew that there were parrots in Texas. That's some kind of parrot. Look at those things go. They fly so fast. I heard them in the trees and I didn't know what they were, and I thought they were gonna shoot out at me. There's some kind of green. I am not a bird expert by any means. I have a friend that has a bunch of different parrots, so I might have to ask him. But I have no idea what those were. They were had an orange beak and parroty looking. But that was interesting. There's quite a few of them. I don't know if someone's had them as pets and they're just loose, or they naturally are in this area. But this one is died in 1883. That's a newer one. Gerhardt, 1965. This was a Johnson. And you can see how these trees just kind of swaying back and forth in the wind. In my opinion, it kind of needs to be trimmed because these are so old. Not so much this one, but those over there could hit it, and over time just kind of make those crack. Everything's so old. Very interesting. We're going to take a look at that tree in a second, but look at this crypt here, kind of above ground and below ground. And whatever those birds are, they've messed all over this. And this is all busted. Obviously the marker that told something about this person. Oh, here it is here. Looks like 1888. Eccles maybe is the last name. That's an interesting crypt right there, though. That's another historical marker over there. I see several historical markers, which is very cool for an old cemetery. And flat markers right over here. There's a squirrel checking out, seeing what I'm doing in his territory. I don't know how well visited this cemetery is, to tell you the truth. See, like, broken bottles and stuff like that, but I don't know, maybe people come in here and drink, you know? Yeah, very interesting tree, but look at this one. Kind of just growing. Oh, there's kind of a sun there, but look at this tree. This tree is very interesting, how it kind of grows up and then leans to the side and dips back down into the ground and then eventually kind of comes back up. It reminds me of something like an octopus coming out of the ocean, since we're near the ocean, you know, kind of spider-like. How they kind of just are reaching out. It's like the tree is reaching out to take some of the members of the cemetery here. Very interesting. This is the old Bayview Mesquite. The first military funeral in Texas took place on this site in 1845. And it says this tree remains as a monument and a living witness to the troubled times that typified that era in Texas history. So, that tree, right? Would be my guess. No telling how old it is then, man, if it was really planted from then. This says the U.S. veterans of the Army of Occupation from 1845 to 1846. It talks about the 3rd Infantry, the 4th Infantry, 5th, 7th, 8th, and then the 2nd Artillery, 3rd, 4th, and then the 2nd Dragoons, and then some unknown units. And additionally, veterans known but to God. So these are all the veterans that were here, I guess. Quite a few. I can't get over this tree right here, and there's another historical marker there, but this tree is so eye-catching, so different the way that works. So on this side, we're talking about the infantry, artillery, and the dragoons. Additional information on these men, please visit the Corpus Christi Public Library. And this was dedicated in 2004 by descendants of the Mexican War veterans. Pretty interesting. They've got kind of a depiction of the soldier's uniform and stuff. Very, very cool cemetery, actually. A lot of history for the area in South Texas. I know the sun's kind of dipping down into some of the view, but this is the Wilsons. And they died in 1885, looks like in 1884. Sun's kind of getting in my eyes even. This is a 1890. 2-year-old son right here. And this tree is dead, but right up to the side of this Welch, which is monument down here, is placed on some kind of weird cement that has shells mixed in it. And part of the top part, I'm guessing, is broke, but this part through here looks pretty good. Some kind of monument. And then kind of just hollow on the inside. Interesting. I've never looked down in one of those before. I've seen them. It's made a little bit different though. So I don't know. It's like maybe that tree could have done some damage to it. Lots of markers just falling over like that. This should be right up on top of here. There's a bunch of flat-lying markers here. 2nd Lieutenant Benjamin Barry. This is the 1845. So these names, I actually remember from reading that sign. The 2nd Lieutenant, these are your men that were involved on that ship that exploded, where the boilers exploded. Right here, Thaddeus Higgins, 2nd Lieutenant. These are all the 1845 guys. Richard Edwards, 1st Sergeant. John Hughes, he was a private. And Daniel McKearns, he was a sergeant. James Johnson, he was a private. James Marshall, which was a private. And then Alexander Awansky, if I'm saying that correctly, he was a private. So I'm glad we found those guys after that historical sign was talking about it. These trees are just so interesting to me. No, we're going to walk around and take a look at some of the historical signs. I just keep getting caught by these trees and the other markers that are in here. See what else we have. This is interesting. There's a large marker here and a bunch of flat ones kind of lined in the front, almost like as if it's in formation. If you're in the military, you muster and have inspections. It kind of reminds me of that. And these are military markers for sure. You can see the Lone Star flag right there, or at least kind of like a Union Jack maybe or something. So Confederate States Army is what these all look like. So quite a few Confederates here as we go down through here. And they're from different years. I see 1900 here, 1918, 1896, 1867. So different years. That's just kind of a Union Jack. This is erected to the memory of the Confederate that died and interred into this and adjacent cemeteries. August 6th, 1906. I know there's kind of a flare from the sun, but the sun's starting to go down. So those are all Confederates that may or may not be in this cemetery, I guess. See, this is one where I'm saying the tree could knock it off of the base. And I think that's probably what happened there. So we have another marker that's off of the base. And that one is off of the base. And that's 1894 right there. Henderson Coal. There's some very old ones in here. 1931. That is a 1890. Mary Ann, wife of Charles Thompson. This is very interesting here. There's just kind of a hillside right here. And then this little section that jets out. And that little section that overlooks that has some markers in it. 1913 I see for this one on the end. And that one is off the base as well. This is 1890. Interesting how it shoots off, and I see another little section right over there that it's like a miniature one that shoots off. Like I said, lots of markers in here. And you know, they've placed the cement here on some of them, maybe to keep them from, maybe they washed down the hill or sank down in this. It's like there's a little indention right here, so maybe they kind of dug those up and put some stuff underneath to keep them from sinking. So I don't know. Lots of broken ones though. A lot of broken ones. There's quite a few veterans in here. Company C, U.S. Cavalry right there. Joseph Williamson. J.B. Miles, Company A, 3rd Texas Infantry. And he was in the war with Spain. So that's kind of different too. And I just got bit by something. That was a good bite. I don't know what that was. I didn't see it, but it was a good bite. H.F. Stevenson, 1912. And you can see where that's come off of the base. Very interesting as you look down through here. Not going to go to every one of them, but so many of them are off of the bases or broken. The top's broken off, like that one right over there. It's a big cemetery, and no telling how many are not marked. This one is like several markers here. Like this is kind of just piled and leaning on top of this marker right here. Definitely different and sad to see. I suppose, you know, this area's had, look at that, that's really worn down. Just over time with the wind, probably just the different hurricanes that came through here, you know. They had a massive hurricane that came through Corpus Christi, I know, in 1919. And I know they've probably had other ones, but as those come through with some big strong winds or something, this just happens, or accidental when you mow. So, Captain John Anderson, 1813, Ystad, Sweden, I guess. So, and then his wife, Hannah Bowen Anderson, from Minersville, Pennsylvania. So, more modern marker, maybe designating these old ones here. This is a whole Anderson family. Let's see here. See if we can make our way over to those historical markers. Beautiful cemetery. It is well maintained. You can tell they keep it mowed, and it's definitely trimmed around the markers. It's just, what do you do with these things when they fall? You know, this costs money to have this reset up here. And if you ever paid for stuff like that, I've done work in the cemeteries where I've raised money for cemeteries that have had broken markers like this, and it really is a lot more expensive than you would ever realize, especially something like that. To have that reset, oh my gosh, I would say no less than $300 for this one right there. But something that size could be upwards to $500, and it depends on the area that you're in. Oklahoma is probably cheaper than this area right here. And I'm talking about just resetting it on there, not including maybe resetting a base and putting something in there to keep it from sinking again. So, never know. Let's see this historical marker here. This is on William H. Maltby. You can see this marker says in Worthington County, Ohio is where he was born, March 14th, 1837. Died in Corpus Christi, August 21st, 1880. So right up here tells a little history that he was served as a journalist and newspaper publisher for 3 Corpus Christi newspapers. And while living in Cleveland, Maltby worked as a typesetter for the Cleveland Herald in 1859. The same year, his older brother Henry began publishing the Ranchero in Corpus Christi. Soon after, William left Cleveland to assist his brother here, and the brothers lived in a boarding house where William met his wife. And then the Civil War began, and he earned the rank of lieutenant of an artillery battery and later became its captain. This unit became Company I of the 8th Texas Infantry Regiment and defended the Arkansas Pass. Union forces captured Maltby's entire battery on November 17, 1863. Now a prisoner of war, Maltby found himself in Vicksburg, Mississippi, where his brother Jasper served as a Union brigadier general. So, pretty interesting history. He had a lot that went on. Came from the north, and then came down here to the south, got involved in the Southern Confederate Army, then became a prisoner of war, it sounds like. In memory of Benjamin F. Neal, first mayor of Corpus Christi, 1852, erected and dedicated by the city, April 7th, 1935. William Schaefer, commissioners, you know, it goes on to tell about that. Wow. And look at this monument right here. Well, let me show this. This is damaged right there. But this monument is just complete toast. That would have been a beautiful monument right there. So, what does that say? Our parents right down there. William Mann, born at Richmond. I don't know if that's Richmond, Virginia, Richmond, Missouri, Richmond, is there Richmond, Texas? Died August 17th, 1810 or 1816. No, died September 2nd, 1855. Pretty interesting. That would have been an incredible monument right there, though. I mean, there's some big ones in here. Some of them standing, some of them busted. Let's see what this one says. It looks like it lists a lot of historical information on it. Oh my gosh, it's all in Spanish. At the top it has kind of a Bible. It just says Santa Biblia, La Esperanza de Mexico a la Memoria del Ardio, Alejo Hernandez. And then there's a bunch in Spanish here. I know the sun is glaring. I can't do anything about that, but that is all in Spanish. I have no idea. Maybe one of you guys, Alejo Hernandez, can look that up on Find a Grave and put something down below. Another monument busted there. I took Spanish, but it's something that I don't really use, and so I've forgotten a lot of it. Sometimes I can read it. Sun's going down though, so I'm limited with time. This is died August 26, 1863. This was a brother, 51 to 63, a 12-year-old right there. And it's just sort of caved in on this kind of above ground crypt, and there's dirt underneath. But they've all kind of cracked and caved in. This is the father, 1820 to 1881. And here's the mother, 1827 to 1899. Can't imagine how much one of those would be to fix. And you can see a busted one there. 1910, that's a McGregor family. You can tell where some of this ground is maybe soft. This is leaning. The matter of time with that heavy top right like that this either busts off or the whole thing just kind of leans in and falls. Much like this one right here. Look at the lean on this. As I look at it from the side, that thing is just really leaning. And it's got all sorts of pieces where they've fallen and stuff. And it's almost like as if they tried to reinforce some of this. I see a piece of metal there, but this stuff has fallen off. This is broken and fallen in the ground here. It's almost like maybe it was buried and they're doing something to recover it. Like they maybe saw some of this and they decided to recover some of the pieces and maybe trying to put it together. It does look like an active digging right there. But this one is about to fall. Right over there, I can see where it says Captain Barry, right in that one. 1818 to 1888. Look at this one that has fallen. Rather. George Rather died in 1914, born in 1862. This looks like something out of the Old West. It's just a wooden marker. Man. In memory of Jesse Perham, native of Connecticut, died of yellow fever in Corpus Christi, where he came to serve his fellow men as pastor. Interesting. Man, they had a big yellow fever outbreak, I guess, which is understandable. I just got bit by a mosquito, or something on my foot, on the ankle part. But yellow fever, that's a scary thing. And down here where all this water is, here's another wood marker. In fact, there are multiple wood markers here. This is another Confederate States Army soldier. It says 1841, 18 something. It's all chipped and busted somehow. These wooden markers, man, they've surely been replaced. Here's another wooden marker here. You can tell where there was wood in those and it's just kind of disintegrated. So I guess that's one and that's one, the way those are. So Louis de Planck, if I'm saying that right, born in Prussia, kind of that Prussian, German, Belgium influence here in southern Texas. In 1842, and he immigrated to Mexico during the American Civil War era. By 1864, he was working in Matamoros and soon opened a photography studio in Brownsville, Texas. During the American Civil War, the Confederate cotton trade transformed Brownsville and Matamoros into boom towns. Those are right across the border from each other, in case you didn't know, which helped the business that he had, in addition to photographing both the Union and Confederate troops, which is interesting that you have contact with both like that. He was stationed in the area, and despite sustaining heavy damage to both of his studios and losing valuable equipment in the 1867 hurricane, so imagine that, no telling how many hurricanes they've had here, he managed to photograph the storm damage. So that'd be interesting to look up as well. The 2 years after the storm, he opened the studios in Indianola and Corpus Christi. So definitely a historical person as a photographer here in the area and helping to document some of the history. Look at this flat marker here. Here's a pile of red ants. In case you don't know, we're at the beach, so I'm walking around in sandals. And they've got those big old red ants right there. You know what's bad though is not the red ants in Texas. It's the fire ants, and I assume that they're down here. See, this marker is Martha Davis Clark and Reverend Horace Clark. She passed to rest in January, so it's just kind of a big flat marker. It's a huge flat marker. A lot of these trees that are the same kind with the leaves and the beans like that. See another historical marker over here, so we'll make our way to this one. See what kind of information we can learn. Rosalind Bayton there, 1914. A lot of markers on the ground again. And there's a busted one right there. So this is, let's get it out of the sun here. John Dix, born in Littleton, Massachusetts in 1796. John Dix played a significant role in the American and state history. As a teenager, he served aboard a privateer during the War of 1812. Wow. He was engaged in capturing the English Brigadier Don Cossack, which he left a California port. He soon became a sea captain and was shipwrecked on the island of New Zealand. In 1825, Dix married Mary of Massachusetts. He founded a settlement in Michigan. Trying to skip through some of this so we can bear through it and it's not a super long video of me just reading, but Pretty interesting. In 1849, after 15 years of farming in the town of Independence, the Dix family moved to Nueces County and settled in Corpus Christi, where Dix purchased 6 city lots from the city's founder. And he was a successful sheep rancher, winning prizes at the Lone Star Fair. And he was appointed as a surveyor and inspector for the port of Corpus Christi by President Franklin Pierce in 1854, and was later reappointed by President James Buchanan in 1858. The Civil War split the Dix family when members took opposite sides. Dix, a pro-union activist, was 1864, he was indicted for treason against the Confederate States of America along with 8 others. The war ended before any action could be taken against the men. After the war, Dix was appointed Chief Justice of Nueces County, a position he held until 1869, the year before his death. So here is Mr. John Dix right here, and his wife right over here, Mary Dix. Talk about some history. I mean, this cemetery has got some interesting history. Decently old cemetery with some interesting tales in here. It looks like a Schwein, 1946. That's one of the newer ones in here. So some Moore family, different dates of death there. This one's kind of busted. So let's see what this big tall monument. You can see all these broken ones here. I wish I could show every one of them. I feel bad, you know, because they could just totally disappear where the names are gone or worn off or whatever. Let's see what this says. Such a big monument. Died at Corpus Christi, Texas. This is William Gamble, July 13th, 1877. A soldier of the Republic of Texas. Pretty interesting though. It is a large monument, beautiful monument. I wonder if it extended higher than that and the top of it has broken off or something. But you can see there's a ton of these monuments that are broken. Bunches of them. You can see there. This one, you guys know me, I love these iron fences. And this fence is leaning, got pieces broken from it. It's in sad shape. Really sad shape. Let's see here. Who do we have? Looks like Weymouth. Died May 30th, 1899. James Edward Weymouth. Got his own fence, old fence, super rusted. Very heavy duty looking, but worn out. And some kind of monument was there and it has now busted. You know, all these monuments right here, I guess they've busted and fallen over. Maybe they've sunk in the ground, who knows? They're gone. That one's fallen off of the base, 1910. And that's Captain John Fitch. It's upside down, I know. So someone that served in the military. If you look at this, this is the Schaefer family. Charles Schaefer. Man, what a big monument that is too. And it could have had something up top. But they've kind of got just this family plot here. There's a couple more graves right there in the corner. Pretty interesting. There's a power box right here next to this monument, which has fallen face first. I don't think we saw this historical marker. Let's see what this is. I didn't see this. It's up in the trees like that. Ellen Merriman and Eli T. Merriman. See what this says. We'll weave through these trees. Eli Todd Merriman is the son of a doctor. It's kind of hard to read because there's tree in the way. And man, whatever this is, some of them have pokey things on them. But it looks like he had something to do with the Corpus Christi Gazette. It's who he worked for. And it's some more history on someone else that kind of helped document the town. And he was a reporter here, is what it looks like. Kind of hard to read, and I had to duck down because the tree was so low. A lot of history here. It's been a long time in this cemetery. This one right here, look at the top of that. The very top of that is broken, barely hanging on. This is broken down here. See if we can read this history, because there is a sign up here. I have to step in between these graves and get in the shade here. We're right in between the graves. William Doree is a chemist, geologist, and photographer. A lot of photographers and journalists. So he's from Bavaria, and he was educated in Würzburg, and then went to study at the University of Munich. And so he participated in the 1848 uprising against King Ludwig. So he then came to Tennessee, where he married his wife, and they had 5 children. Changed his name to Doree, if I'm saying that correctly, and relocated to New Braunfels, which is north of San Antonio. And he developed and demonstrated new photography techniques alongside other German immigrants. And that's where I was talking about. There's a lot of Germanic influence here. And then he served under the Confederacy as a state chemist to help develop materials for weapons and to find sources of nitrates for the military. He also invented smokeless explosives and material for marine torpedoes, but these did not see use in the Civil War. After the war, he moved to Corpus Christi and opened the Doree and Bingham drugstore. In 1867, after a yellow fever epidemic took his son Emil, as well as physicians in town, he developed remedies for the fever, including an effective antiseptic. He later represented Nueces County at the World Cotton Exposition in New Orleans in 1885, and went on to publish important geological research for the state. So, wow, scientific leader right there is what that is. And so William is right here with this sort of monument. Now this would have went right in the middle right here. So it's kind of falling apart. I was stepping right in between here, where his crypt is kind of just falling in here. And there's his son. This is his son right there. I know that's kind of in the way, but his son is the one with the broken upright monument. So I don't know. See one more historical marker, but my eyes are drawn to this fence right here. Here's a broken marker here. So yeah, this kind of would have been an arch in a way. And it's the Garcia family. What's interesting is, oh, okay, he's from Spain. I saw she was born in Switzerland. I was like, well, that's an interesting last name. I hear those parrot things again. I don't know where they're going. I'd love to see them up close again. So, died in 1877 for the wife, and 1875 for him. And there's a Staples there. That's the last name. And there, that was 1890, and this is 1894 Mitchell. Look at this iron fence, just kind of split apart. And that is a large monument there too. Just sort of a shroud maybe over the top of the monument. Very large. Someone that obviously had some money with this fence and that monument. And maybe they had it for other family members as well, and it just never got used. Here we have somebody that was in the military. And 7th U.S. Infantry, Alonzo Allen. No dates on it or anything. Getting bit in the back, sorry. Kind of freaky when you start reading about this yellow fever, but I'm really getting torn up in here for you guys filming this cemetery. I don't know what's biting me. I don't know if it's mosquitoes or what, but they have a packed punch in it. This is the Roger families. Theresa Julia Rogers, born in 1857 and died in 1886. And that was erected by her mother. This is William Rogers, and he died, it's kind of worn down, 1877, I believe. And he was 55 years old. And so this is the wife of William, and shoemaker. Maggie Rogers, wife of William Shoemaker. Huh. She remarry, I guess? If I'm understanding that right. I'm getting bit again. I'm trying not to shake the camera. All sorts of monuments in here. We have Anton, Father Felix Anton, and from Germany, died in 1879. It really is incredible to see how many German immigrants came to this southern part of Texas. Is that parrot thing again somewhere up here? It sure is. Flew up over on the other side though. We'll see if we can catch it. Probably my voice is scaring it. Matthew Nolan, after the death of their parents, Mary Nolan arrived in Corpus Christi in 1845 at the age of 16, along with her two brothers, Matt, 11, and Tom, 9. Mary became a nurse in the United States Army, allowing Matt to serve as a bugler and Tom as a drummer boy. The siblings were attached to the 2nd Dragoons throughout the Mexican-American War and all major engagements from Palo Alto, Mexico City. So, pretty interesting. On September 14th, 1861, at Fort Brown in Brownsville, Matt mustered into the 2nd Regiment, Texas Mounted Cavalry, commanded by Rip Ford. Nolan returned to Corpus Christi in May of 1862 to marry Margaret. Soon after, Nolan headed east for Galveston and participated in the capture of the Federal vessel Morning Light. Following the Union capture of Fort Sims, which guarded Aransas Pass, Nolan commanded one of 2 companies stationed outside of Corpus. And in 1864, now a major in the Confederate Army, Nolan entered a second stint as Nueces County Sheriff while he was escorting John C. McDonald, brother of Frank and Charles Gravis. Murdered Nolan and McDonald in broad daylight on December 22nd, 1864. Matthew Nolan played a conspicuous role in the Texas during the turbulent years and is buried here at the old Bayview Cemetery next to his brother. So here we have Matthew right there, and then this is Thomas right beside him. Pretty interesting there. I haven't heard of those dragoons, if I'm saying that right. So that's pretty interesting. One more sign here. It's going to be a little bit longer video than I thought it would, but it's so interesting. We have Thomas Parker, born in Philadelphia in 1817. Thomas Parker came to Texas at the age of 20. In 1839, he and his parents, William and Hannah Parker, were awarded large land grants in the vicinity of the present-day Corpus Christi they used to raise cattle. And then it says he joined forces and established a trading post in the vicinity and commanded a Texas Ranger unit. Wow. When General Zachary Taylor's U.S. Army set up camp near the trading post on 1845, he was named the Army's quartermaster. Thomas Parker was awarded the contract to supply beef to the soldiers. It was from this army post that the town of Corpus Christi grew. Very interesting history there as well. As an established resident of the area, Colonel Tom Parker, as he was known, was appointed the first Nueces County Sheriff after Texas was admitted to the Union in 1845. He later served as a Texas Ranger and a soldier in the Confederate Army. After the end of the Civil War, Parker returned to Corpus Christi, where he became a city marshal in 1873 and died in 1886. Thomas Parker's contribution in commercial activity and law enforcement were vital to the early growth of Corpus Christi. Okay. Being distracted? Where are you, bird? I know you're up here somewhere. I hear you. It's that parrot thing somewhere. It's green and it matches the leaves. You're up here somewhere. Okay, I hear you. What are you and where are you? Where are you? They must have a nest up here somewhere and I can't find it. Man, they're camouflaged. If you guys see it, let me know. I don't see that bird, but I sure hear that bird. There it is. I was looking in the wrong spot. Okay. Let's see if we can get out here and find them. Man, you can see this tree just kind of swaying and blowing in the wind. And this one right here just kind of sunk in the ground. And man, there was a hawk that just swooped down and tried to get one of those parrots. Parrot was flying low through the cemetery, and a hawk swooped down and tried to grab it and missed. But yeah, Colonel Thomas Parker right there, erected by his son Thomas. Wow, what a fascinating cemetery. And as the sun goes down, it's very pretty to look at the sun shining through on the markers, those bright white markers, casting shadows along with the trees and the historical markers. I love this cemetery, actually. A little gem, the only one in here. There hasn't even really hardly been cars passing on the road. See if we can get a close-up of this parrot one more time. Somewhere in that tree, I think there's a hawk unless it flew off. But I'd like to know what those parrot things are. I don't know, macaws or what. Look at that hawk. See that hawk right there? It was in that tree. And there's some other bird trying to chase it off that's real tiny. There goes a bunch of like grackles trying to chase it. It was after that parrot though. Whatever that parrot was, that's a seagull. Kind of jumpy now trying to catch those things. I don't know. Very interesting cemetery though. So anyways, this was a lot longer video than I ever thought I would make in this cemetery. It's highly fascinating. A lot of history in here. It's incredible to think about how much history is known, but how much history is not known, and how many graves have just sunk down into the ground and are lost or have withered away. But if you're ever in the Corpus Christi area, stop by here, the old Bayview Cemetery. Pay a little visit to some of these graves and read some of the history. Very interesting. A lot of stuff to do in Corpus Christi, but I don't think this cemetery's necessarily on the list of things for tourists to do. But if you're into cemeteries like I am, it's excellent. Highly recommend it. Lots of history. Teaches a little bit about the city that you're visiting. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next adventure. Bye-bye.